better grades and I'll reward you. The demand always carries certain levels of that fear, shame, guilt, consequences. Whereas when I look at command, if I want to command that she get better grades, rather than put the burden on her, I carry the burden. I put it on my shoulders in such a way that I would look for, okay, what does she need? What is she lacking to get better grades? At which point I find what is lacking, what is needed, provide what is needed, and the better grades come about almost naturally. And it, to me, that's like commanding, because you're not putting the burden on the one that you're commanding or demanding from, you're carrying that burden yourself as the authority. Does that make sense?
It somewhat makes sense to me. I think that that is a piece of it. What I would say about it is that Uncle Tracy talked about this with my wife's family earlier this week, and how her father has a very commanding voice. He talked to him about it as well. Me, him, and Uncle Tracy talked when we talked as a family. And some of the conclusions that I'm reaching about, not conclusions, some of the things that are being revealed to me about command versus demand, is that what constitutes something as commanding is the willingness it is to go through a process of determining where the balance is. So I used an example with my wife yesterday, and I talked about how my son wanted a snack while we were in the car. How I saying, no, you can't have a snack for this, that, and the third reasons. I'm not to all of it right now, unless it calls for it. But how she responded to that in the law of her emotions, really, if I were to have said, no, this is what I am saying, there's no other way around it, instead of wrestling through that with her, that would have made it a demand. Command only can come from an intimate relationship with the law. It can never come from a relationship outside of that. Something that is lawful and something that represents law or flame, something that represents a candlestick, has to be in relationship for the authority of command to be an authority. Otherwise, all the little nuances of how it makes a person feel will not align properly. There will be no authority in that. It'll just make people feel good.
I have no idea why this popped into my head, but I was thinking on one hand with like where we are, even just specifically like the younger men in this group, that when a lion cub is understanding how to roar, it's not the most pretty sounding kind of process. So that there are growing pains, that there are wrong notes, if you will. But I think that when I consider where a lot of men are, I don't see a person being able to command without being able to hear. So even when it talks about, hear, O Israel, the Lord thy God is one. So when you understand where command comes from, and when you talk about intimacy, not having an intimate relationship with God, and reestablishing that as far as the order that is to be set, I think that we can easily get into conversations that don't go anywhere, whether it is with each other, whether it is with our family, not being able to bring about the healing that we need. But yeah, you have to be able to hear in order to command.
So you have to, what I heard TJ saying, how I would expound upon that is that you have to understand what is a lawful response and what a, and so there's giving and receiving, sowing and reaping. This, I'm trying to be specific, but that would make me tell a story. When you command, you have to understand what a law, as a person that is commanded, you have to be able to understand what is a lawful response or what the law really is supposed to say, behaviors of that. When you hear the correct tone, you're supposed to respond in kind to that, and that's what creates authority. So when CJ's talking about hearing, what I hear is that you have to understand what the law or the woman is really saying, or the child is really saying, to be able to have the authority, to be able to build on that authority of command.
Would you guys say that when you're saying to hear, that you have to hear their needs? Doesn't it start with hearing what their needs are, or seeing their needs, eyes to see, ears to hear? What the
So,
needs of another are? Because if you don't know the needs, then how do you know the lawful response?
so what I'm talking about is the gathering of information. So when you're determining what a need is, there is a command that says expose yourself. That is a command that says show me where you are. And it is very offensive. How that is responded to tells you some clues as to what the need is. If you do not command offensively, and this is where people's feelings start getting in the way. If you cannot be offensive, you will never get to the bottom of the need. What people don't understand about commanding is that it is not it doesn't say my way or the highway all the time. It says expose yourself.
Okay, is there any burden on the one commanding to expose to provide safety?
So, yes, in that it has to, the rules of intimacy or the rules of relationship have to be established in the sense of when I speak to my wife and I say, this is where I'm at, this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm trying to accomplish, and she challenges that. Sometimes she can hear that challenge sometimes she can hear my response to that challenge as is my way or the highway. What I am working on is communicating that that's not what I'm saying. This is what I'm trying to get at. And this is where what I'm wrestling with so that we can understand, we can be of one accord.
Okay, and I was just looking at the angle that, if I command to, and let's say my daughter, I have to use my daughter as an example, expose yourself so that I can see your need. And she struggled to expose herself, then I would take it back to look at that she has a fear. She doesn't feel safe. And so then it would again be up to me to find out why she doesn't feel safe, provide what's needed for that safety so that then she is able to respond to expose yourself.
Yes.
So it's like the tumble of the burden is always going to go back to the stronger vessel.
Yes.
The moment that you place the burden on the weaker vessel is the moment it becomes a demand.
So sometimes I have a hard time hearing burden because I feel like there is a burden regardless of whether people think there is one or want to accept there's one. But I agree with if you put all if you don't equal the playing field, and you make the responsibility on somebody to respond without you being accountable for that response or hearing what you want to hear, then that creates a fear in somebody to be able to expose themselves.
All right, so basically, have we gone through, are you all going through what your challenges were this week? Is that where Micaiah's sharing? Yes, no?
I thought we was just waiting on you.
Oh, so y'all didn't go through what the challenges are?
So the younger guys have been on for, I think, an hour and a half, 2 hours now. And we kind of just segued into this when people started hearing what we were talking about.
All right. So we'll go through what, well, let's see, gives see how I want to do this. All right, we're going to give three of the women an opportunity to share what their challenges are. And at this point, we're going to give one man. Micaiah kind of shared some things, so I'm adding that into a part of the man part. So we get one other man to share what their challenges are this week. And we'll give 3 women to share what their challenges are this week. The purpose of this is, again, to understand, in another way of saying it, what God is saying to us as a whole. He is speaking to us as a whole more than he is speaking to us as individuals. Three women, one man. Let's start off with one of the women.
All right. We have a man that we know. He was my sax teacher. And when he would come around, I noticed he had a 5-finger discount. And Randall was going to invite him over again yesterday, but I don't trust the man. How do I deal with that?
Okay, right. I want you to share what your challenge is. That's fine. At this point, I'm not just going to go in and
Feeling
answer that
comfortable with
question.
him, feeling comfortable with him coming back around, worried that he's going to take some more things from us. Stealing
Okay.
is what I'm talking about.
All right. Well, we'll try to get back around to that. What I don't want to do is turn this into a question and answering kind of thing. The purpose of it is for us to be vulnerable. So, and as you open up and being vulnerable, that's different than just asking a direct question. or something is upsetting me and I want to know answers to it. The purpose is to exercise being vulnerable. Did that make sense, Sherry?
Yeah,
So if you were saying something, you would say, I'm very upset right now. And I'm upset
I
because,
guess it's a fear. And so I look at who's in control, him or I, and then who am I to trust, which is Yah. Yeah,
yeah.
if the man is stealing and I'm aware, it's, I don't know, I'm a little,
Sherry, I have a question for you.
yes.
Where does Randall, how do you feel about Randall allowing the guy back in to the house? Do you trust
It-
Randall?
I didn't like his answer. He said, I trust him regardless. And
So
I don't
wouldn't-
feel like he heard me.
So would you say that maybe it stems back to you don't trust Randall's decision?
Yeah, that's probably the truth.
Okay,
Need-
so that's the challenge.
Yeah,
That's the challenge. So in essence, what Chad is getting you to do is really reveal and be vulnerable with where the real issue is. That's the challenge. All right, let's keep that challenge on the table. We're going to try to get to it. All right. Another one of the women, explain your challenge this week. What is God saying to us as a whole? Nate, I see you made it. Glad to have you on. By the way, Nate is Darvier's boyfriend, and he's been in the men's group, a part of the men's group. So, Nate, Darvier, real quick, Darvier asked for me to give her the number to the Zoom meeting, and I did not. I was going to see if you could do it. Give her the information.
Yes, I gave it to her. I sent it to her.
Okay. So come on, let's get it rolling. One of the sisters open up about what your challenge this week was.
Hello. It's Star. My picture's not on. I didn't necessarily have anything specific I wanted to share, but it was interesting that Sherry's led to, or her sharings led to trust, because that word has been in my head all week. I feel like I have a serious trust issue to everyone in general. Of course, I really only interact with my husband throughout the day, beside my children. I don't have to face it too much but it's something I feel like I struggle with, being able to rely on people. For example, my sister's graduation in May. I want to go and, you know, be able to support her and be there. But I was like, well, I don't want to take both kids, and it's just too much of a hassle. And when I bring stuff up like this to my parent or my dad who lives in California, he's like, oh, well, we'll make sure that we have your back, you know, whatever you need, just let us know. But then I have this fear that I get there and they drop the ball somewhere. And so I'm scrambling to figure out how to take care of us. And I just noticed this theme where I don't do things, I try to stay home, or I just avoid people because I don't want to have to rely on anybody.
Ah, good one. Good one. Now we getting into some good stuff. All right. Keep that in mind. We're again talking about what God is saying to us as a whole. All right. Nate, I don't know if Daria explained to you that if she was on, I was really wanting you all to open up a little bit in a discreet way about somewhat what she presented and what you all presented this week to me, because I feel that that is the issue that ties out the whole issue in. So if you feel that you're capable of doing that, I would be grateful if you could just in a nutshell open that that up.
Yeah, for sure. I don't mind. I think Daria is going to be getting on here in a second, so I'll give her a few seconds. And if she doesn't hop on, then we can just go for it with us. Does that work?
Okay. Yeah, that works. All right. So while Daria is getting ready to get on, or while they're working on that, let's get another one of the women to share.
To me, so I've been trying at my workplace, I've been trying to make connections with people, you know, making friends, and then also hanging out, you know, trying to make connections with the people I already know. Yeah. And to me, it's honestly very hard. It's hard for me to actually like be open and vulnerable with other people. And of course, you know, sometimes people that I'm a little bit more comfortable with, I have been able to be open, but the people that I don't know and who don't know me yet, I'm wanting to be that. I'm wanting to be comfortable, wanting to be open with others. I'm wanting to make strong connections, not having affectionate, you know, not something affectionate, but an actual intimate, trusting, challenging relationship. But I feel like I never technically do enough in that regard, because of course there's apprehension to being vulnerable with people.
Okay. What I'm going to ask everybody to do is, as much as possible, make sure that your face is seen, so that, because I can't hear altogether when I see your face and you speaking, I can put together the movement of your mouth with the words. So, um, Kayla, what I would ask you first off, which I don't get a sense of this, but I don't know how you feel about it. What I would ask you first off is, do you feel like you fight social anxiety?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So that's a challenge in itself. And, you know, we would have to talk about where that actually comes from. Social anxiety. A lot of times, what connects it to everything that everybody said so far is interesting. And I would love to hear Nate, and if Darby, she was asking to just be a part of it because she was out of town, so she may not be able to say very much. Just making everybody aware of that. But I'd love for them to be able to open up a little bit of what they were experiencing. And but to finish what I was saying to you, Kayla, what ties it all together is how you feel about yourself. That's what ties it all together. How you feel about yourself. All right. So Nate, Daria, if you're able to, you can open up and just share kind of how you felt or whatever in a discreet way. So I'm not just asking you to go through all of the details, but pretty much give us a framework. You or Nate.
Okay. Can you say that again? What were you wanting me to start with?
Basically, if you or Nate can share a little bit of what you talked to me about earlier this week, but really just giving the framework of the challenge that you are having.
Okay, I don't really know necessarily where to start, but the Tracy helped us kind of define kind of a desire that Nate has, and where he was coming from, how I was seeing things. And essentially, the idea is like there's this dynamic that exists between man and woman where men desire for a woman to be a tease to an extent, or they need something to chase, they need something that drives or motivates them. And there's something about the woman that can naturally do that. But some women, some of us, myself included, are not necessarily trained in that. Either our different experiences kind of teach us to shut that off. And then what I was doing was kind of expecting him to meet certain requirements without trying to, without being willing to fulfill that sort of like, I don't know how to say it, but without, I don't know, it's like making him chase me for no reason, essentially,
I understand.
or without drive.
I'm just, if you want to just really present it like you presented it to me, that you're stuck. I'm describing it to some degree. The call was, I'm stuck. We are stuck. Because I feel like I have certain needs. And either he is unwilling to give them, or he's not willing to give them, but it's not enough.
Yeah, I think one of my needs was to feel valued or appreciated. And it felt like he wasn't giving that because his response to me asking for that was, you're still not really meeting the requirement. It's like, I appreciate who you are, where you are, but I still need this, fill in the blank. And what I really was asking at the end of things, if you look at the bottom of it, was for him to validate me. And he's essentially saying, I'm not going to do that. That wouldn't even be good for you. And for him to give whatever it is, like to have that natural sort of response to drive and to do, comes with me making an adjustment and first loving myself, because there are behaviors that come with loving myself that would naturally draw him in. And instead of loving myself, I was asking him to kind of compensate for where I don't love myself, and asking him to meet the requirements I have of commitment, of, appreciation, of affection, fill in the blank. And he's kind of drawn a hard line of, like, I'll work with you where you are, but you still need to meet this mark. That's what I can say for now.
That's very good. Nate, do you have anything to add to it, or to give us a little more, give everybody a little more of a picture? Yours could start out, I feel like this, or just I feel like this. This is what I feel like, or whatever. So, Nate, are you okay with that, or where are you at? Oh, we can't hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I was just talking away. I thought y'all could hear me.
Yeah, we weren't hearing nothing.
Okay. All right. I'll go back. Yes. For me, the biggest takeaway that I had was we talked about kind of like the purpose of a moral compass that we have, right? And it operates from a place of where we're deficient, where we feel like we need to protect ourselves, right? So I think that, like, a really hard thing for a man to explain in any given sense is, like, you have these things that you want from your partner, and I'm sure that it's the same with women as well. You have these things that you want, but sometimes it feels wrong that you would want something. And really, when it comes to desires, if you're in a committed relationship, a lot of the things that makes the desires wrong isn't necessarily that you want them or if you have a need that needs to be filled, right? But it's asking those things from a deficient place, right? So if you want someone to love you, that's not wrong. But if you want someone to love you because you don't love yourself, then that becomes the same thing, but from a deficient place, And so just looking at a lot of the different things that we want from each other, I think that we hit a point in the relationship where we felt stuck, not because either one of us was doing anything wrong, but just because when you don't necessarily trust, or trust is an issue, like it is for me, it definitely is for me, it becomes hard to be vulnerable and to be honest about where you are, which is why you want that, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Very good. So, do you all understand what's on the table? Is there any questions? All right, let me get one of my real good technicians. Micaiah, what did you hear them say?
Part of what I heard on both sides is that giving from a deficient place and asking from a deficient place is detrimental to a relationship. A lot of times as men, we have needs and we ask and they are not met to our expectations. So we feel entitled to withhold. A woman can do the same thing. There's another side of that to where a need being asked for or getting from a deficient place of, I don't have this to give, and I'm giving it anyway, can cause a lot of turmoil in a relationship.
Did that make sense? All right. Sherry, does that connect with anything you asked before I go into it? Does that connect with my mistrust? Now, I'm gonna sum it up. Nate said it very well. Our moral compass. What is it? Our moral compass. What is our moral compass? How much does it affect my trust? What does it mean in trust? Our moral compass. Does that make sense? You understand the
No,
question?
no.
That's what's on the table right now. Now we can discuss it. This week, almost everybody that I talked to and worked with had to do with our moral compass. Their moral compass. So I'll just to get us started a little bit, I'll ask this question. What do you think a moral compass is? Anybody can answer that.
So when you talk about moral compass and when you ask that question, my mind immediately goes to the fear of being raised in something, or the idea of fear. How we were raised and what we received from what we were raised in causes us to validate certain things or devalue certain things and value certain things. And that's what a moral compass comes from.
Good. Anybody else?
I'll add something to that as well. This was really good. This helped us out a lot for sure. So objectively, like a moral compass is what leads you to decide if something is right or wrong, right? However, how we use it usually, we decide if something is bad or wrong based on how a situation that we felt made us feel, right? So if we're like, we've been taken advantage of in a certain area, then our moral compass comes up and says, this is what you have to do to avoid that ever happening again, you know?
Very well stated. Anybody else?
I would say it was moral compass is something similar to what Nate said, as in it's can be viewed as a set of laws that we abide by to justify something, to justify a certain act, or to justify a typical way of how people do things, or what is right or what is wrong.
Very powerful. Very powerful.
I connect a
ahead.
moral compass to my conscience. Like, I don't know. It's almost like there's always been something inside that tells me if something's right or wrong. I can do something and my conscience tells me that's wrong. Where that conscience comes from, whether it's from, experience, learning, growing up and all that may vary, but I do believe that we have a conscience that speaks to us.
Okay. Good.
So I think it has to do with value. Everyone pretty much summarized how I would describe moral compass, but it's your value. And one thing about value is value has to be given to you. Usually it comes from your parents. And so if your parents don't value themselves or they're lacking in something, you will inherit that. That is your inheritance.
All right. I think there's some points there. Michael said, I think there's some points, having an inheritance. So, now, what are we saying? Are we saying that, for instance, if we look at the issue that most of the women brought up, I'm struggling with trust here. I'm struggling with trust there. I'm struggling with trust in different areas. In my relationship with Bev, there's a lot of things that we trust each other in. But one of our greatest challenges is when we started working together on a house. And where the mistrust really comes in our relationship has been, it looks like when she's talking to me, I'm not doing enough. Or are you really putting forth an effort? This is not getting done fast enough. I'm not saying that in a negative, but it's the same message. Does that make sense? We're hearing the same thing. And so what the point that I'm making in that is trust. What affects our trust? Does our moral compass affect our trust? Does it make us feel like at times that somebody is not doing or doing? Let me conclude this point. Let me explain this point here. Add to what a moral compass is. When you went to church and they came up with a set of rules, a doctrine, whether it was how you dressed, how you trusted, you can't go to the hospital, you can't go to the hospital. And it addressed how you trust something or how you don't trust something. And it becomes the doctrine of that church. The doctrine is the same or the equivalent of a moral compass. Where doctrines come from is when a person is deficient or they're deficient in the state, in a certain state, they begin to make laws and rules to make up for that deficiency. That's a doctrine. But it's equivalent or the same as a moral compass. We create our own doctrines in our minds of right or wrong, fair or unfair. And this becomes the nature of our trust. All right. Tell me what you think.
I know there's a transition. I had a lot of rules messed up because of deficiencies and trauma and what have you. But when there was a place of sacrifice, there was a provision. The nature of the moral compass changed, where the deficient, where I was concerned with a certain deficiency, I'm now trusting some of my sensitivities. I know that it will frustrate Tracy if you're not operating in on one side of the fence or the other. I know that what I'm saying is, give me a chance and I'll be able to make this clear. I was attacked by a dog this week. If the dog had proceeded to try to attack me, the dog would have killed me. The dog got me really good, and it shook me up really bad. And one of the things that Sherry said was, boy, that sure it was disruptive. I wonder what the significance of this is. You know, am I just randomly getting bit by a dog and that's that? Or was there something to it? Well, I contemplated what Sherry was saying. She and I see these things alike, and the significance of it looked like this. When I was brought into the world, there was complacency on both mom and dad's side of the family. Life came at me and turned the corner, and it bit me hard. Now, they, like the neighbor who was trying to defend me from the dog, he half-heartedly put his hands up, did not really do a good job between me and the dog. That's how my parents were. They didn't do a good job of getting between me and the dog either. Well, these sensitivities arise, and so that is a beginning of a moral compass for me. Well, whenever God started revealing some things about my foundation, and I started placing judgment on certain ideologies, and I started sacrificing certain things, my moral compass changed. One of the things that I learned was through all of this, and it looks like a deficiency, I have a real issue with trust. I have a real issue with anger. I cannot tolerate complacency. If you're not going to give a damn about doing something right, my sensitivities go through the roof. Well, before I made a sacrifice, that shows up as a deficiency and it shows up as bad behavior. But now it's incumbent upon me to trust the nature of who I really am and go ahead and respond to that. If I am sensing complacency, I need to step up and see it and deal with it and what have you. Regarding the trust issues, I'm not trusted along certain lines. You know what? Those, at one point you could say maybe that's justifiable, but I know who I am, and I know where I belong. I know what I'm doing whenever it is that I'm doing it. And so it isn't a matter of just disregarding and not being sensitive to someone else's lack of trust. It's more about me doing a better job of standing up to who I really am. My moral compass has changed.
Okay.
What I heard Randall say is that he's having to say, I am that I am, or that I am, I am. That I am, I am. And in that, this is something that I was kind of talking about at the beginning of the meeting, some of where he's at. But I also think that the first point that he was really trying to say was that there has been a trespass on us as children that allowed us to come up and not push in certain areas or leave certain things alone because of the sensitivities that we have. For Randall, and I would say for me, it has been to not challenge, not command, or not challenge a certain way. And repairing that looks like what Randall was talking about and saying, I am that I am. And in a sense, I would say that the woman has to do that in order for there to be a balancing of the places where we say that we are deficient. That's how the moral compass, I would say, gets corrected. The command and the response.
That's the last part, command and response. So in short, so everybody catches up with that last part of what Micaiah said, is he said that love is far more aggressive than what we think it is. He said that love is not, it's a command. And so a command is much more, is stronger, is much more aggressive. And you see, when Nate is talking about, is that I really enjoyed this conversation with Nate and Davier, because it really, really gave some real good illustrations. And Nate was really revealing it's a struggle, but he's revealing that, hey, this is one thing. If I have, I don't mind me sharing. One thing he said, just a soundbite, was, I'm not worried about all of these. He gave an example. I won't give the example he gave, but I'll just try to give you a picture. I'm not worried about, I don't have this expectation of Darby. I don't have this expectation. But he said, in essence, my expectation is her beauty. My expectation. I'm willing to sacrifice all of these other things that men might see as valuable, and they might put all of this stock in. I need to have this and that and this from this woman, but I'm not worried about that. That's what I heard him say. I want to know that what I'm doing is bringing about a change. Because what I'm doing is commanding you to be beautiful. And it's very aggressive. Something independent of its root can never find beauty. It only finds beauty through its root. Did that make sense? Whenever I say, if you notice, I say, did that make sense? And hear myself saying it, I say that is a foolish question. But so I have to help y'all understand really what I'm saying. Every time I say that, did that make sense? I really said, what do you hear us saying? That's what it means. Talk to me.
So I hear that without trust, we can't become the best versions of ourselves because we won't accept our feedback or reflection from the people that we love. And it's imperative to our relationships and our self-growth that we can not just rely on and trust, but the word that comes to mind is believe that someone has the best interest for you. That all, you know, it all ties into trust. So yeah.
Very good.
I
I
would,
sorry.
go ahead. Go ahead.
I almost have to rewind a little bit when you started talking about moral compass to see if what is being stated is moral compass actually replaced standard. Is that in essence what you're saying? Because if that is the case, does that mean that one's moral compass essentially needs to go away, not be reconfigured or whatever, but it needs to
be sacrificed? Yes.
So a little bit of a picture of that, I will say two things because it's really interesting to me. For males and females, I will say the strongest point of birthright is how you respond to the things that you grow up, and the pressures and the things that you suffered growing up, the traumas that you face. That is I believe that is the strongest point of one of the strongest points of birthright. I will also say that what Crystal was saying was that empty house. You have to be empty in order to be filled. That is a part of the process.
That is good, Makai. Empty house. I don't know if everybody know what you're saying, talking about, but it's good stuff. Crystal, did he respond to your question? You seem to still have somewhat of a question. Restate your question if he did not if he did not fully address it.
Yeah, I think he did. I was just trying to clarify, because just from the things that was said early on about what a moral compass is, and how it is established from a place of deficiency and everything, it's almost like you don't have the information that you need. And so when you encounter something, then you create what right, wrong, good, fair, all that. You create that yourself, because it's like now, because a compass is to give direction. So you don't know, you don't have direction. You don't have a point of footing, guidance, whatever. And so what in hearing that, it almost seems like the moral compass is a form of an idol. It's something that we erect to provide this, and we call it our conscience, we call it whatever, but it's something that we erect, mold to tell us what is right, to tell us what is good, to tell us what we should be doing. And so it's not about, so when Jalen said it means sacrificing it, it's like, it's not about trying to fix it. because it was erected because we didn't know what it should be. So it's not about trying to fix it, but it's like that shouldn't even, and I guess that's what I was kind of asking, should you even have a moral compass if it is erected from a place of deficiency or from a deficiency?
Very good, Crystal. Very good explanation in what you stated. I'm gonna let other people speak about it. So I'm not gonna comment other than that. I will say that when we're using the word deficiency, that's what Micaiah is also referring to by empty house, because an empty house is deficient.
I like to add something too. Okay, so I'm gonna be like really vulnerable with this. There's a part of me that always feels like I know better than God. I'm just talking about me personally. So God can come along and say, this is what it means to be free. This is what it means to live without any additional pressure on you. This is how you are always intended to live, or this is the standard, right? And then one of the things that I've been wrestling with this week is my biggest fear isn't ever that I won't understand information, right? My biggest fear is that when I do understand the information, I'll still make the decision to do what I feel is right in spite of that information, right? And I think that's where the moral compass comes into play for me, right? Because if I'm being honest, there are a lot of things that God is like, well, this is what you should be doing, or this is the standard. And I'll just look at that and be like, there's no way I can achieve that personally. So my moral compass will come along and say like, all right, look, this is how you get as close as possible without having to be vulnerable. This is how you get as close as possible without having to, this is kind of like how you cheat the system, right? And that's a very frustrating thing for me. But one thing that I can say about relationship, not just romantic relationship, I'm talking about like a relationship with a mother or a sister or anything like that. I've begun to realize that like, so for me, let's just say that I have like a place where I always feel taken advantage of if someone asks me to share anything, right? Just from my own upbringing and things like that. Or to be more vulnerable, I'll give you like a real world example. Like for me, the men in my family were few and far in between. So there's like 2 men for every like 16 women, right? So when it comes to being like vocal, right, there's something that I always felt like, because there was not as many of us, whenever any one of us would voice our opinion, it would go unheard, or it's not very important. So now in a relationship, I'm here thinking that, right, the only way I can keep peace is to not express how I feel, right? And that's like my plight. That's like what I feel a lot of times, right? So if I'm in a relationship now where someone is requiring me to, all right, I need you to be the leader of this, I need you to do this. This is our I want to say moral compass. This is like, we're only doing what we feel like we can do to protect ourselves up until this point. And you come across somebody who's doing the exact same thing. And when those two things bump into each other, it's such a huge challenge. Like it's very nasty. Like I know we're talking about it like in theory and things like that, but real world practice of that, it's a nasty thing, man. It's really horrible when you like, you can only do what you have access to protect yourself, and someone is requiring you to do more, and those two things bump into each other, and you know that it's real for you, and just from like sympathy or empathy, I should say, you know it's real for the other person. Someone has to be vulnerable in that if you're ever going to move forward. And that's the challenge that bumps up against each other, where you just like, there's no way above or under this. You have to kind of go through it. And then when you do away with like moral compass altogether and just say, I'm going to trust that God knows what's best for me one way or another, right? That's the only way that is just to take that, the moral compass all together and just throw it as far as you can. Honestly, that's the only way that you can get to a place to where you're living from standard as opposed to what you feel like you have access to in any moment. And realistically, that's like the scariest thing that I've come across so far. Really, it's like having to think about all the little things that I've done to keep myself safe up until this point, and not feeling like I have access to do anything outside of that, right? And then you get to a place where it's just like, but I'm still requiring you more. Like God is still requiring more of me, or in my relationship, we're still requiring more of each other, you know what I mean? Or even like being an older sibling. Like I got so many younger siblings. They're requiring me to do things that I don't have access to right now. And I don't think that anybody's moral compass can ever lead you to a place to do something more than what you have access to. That's like a really hard thing to swallow that I'm still struggling with. But I think that makes sense. And there's something special there.
Powerful.
So I don't want to, I don't want to, I don't want to say something and then don't nobody say nothing after I finish. So y'all go ahead and keep speaking, because again, I like the way the conversation is going, and I don't want to, I guess, overpower it. So are there any more responses to Nate, my mom, Micaiah, Randall?
I have one to what Crystal said. When she was describing the moral compass and being under it, or, you know, as something we erect, it really reminded me of when the Bible speaks of being under the law versus being under the Spirit. And how the law was like a school teacher when you didn't know. It was there for you to know what was right or wrong. But yeah, the two really kind of connected.
Jalen, are you planning on going on to another point? Is that what you're trying to say?
No, I wasn't planning on going to another point.
Okay. Well, I am collecting my thoughts, but I do have something to share as well.
All right, Mike, you seem to be the one that's ready, so go ahead.
Yeah, I don't have all my thoughts completely collected, but what I do want to say is that the theme of this conversation has almost been trust. So how do we repair trust? One of the things that in the conversation that Micaiah and the young guys were having before we started this was, how is a command lawful? So if God is, or the language of Hebrew is very commanding, and it comes from a place of value, giving value, not from a place of deficiency. If you are quote unquote commanding from a place of deficiency, or there is no trust established, no level playing field, then it becomes a demand, and demanding is an imbalance or leads to corrupt, toxicity, etc. So how do we repair trust? Well, first you have to have a level playing field, or two people have to be able to say that I am that I am. This is who I am. I'm willing to be corrected. I'm not trying to stay bullheaded, and I'm not changing. It has to have two people willing to be held accountable, and the ability to address a trespass as soon as it arises. If you leave a trespass sit too long, it becomes this overwhelming problem, and it will come up in every conversation going forward.
Yes. So what I've heard everyone talk about again, like Michael was just saying, trust is a theme of this conversation, or the moral compass that allows us to hold on and justify our mistrust. So I bring up, Uncle Tracy's talked about entering into a relationship and what that involves. It involves what Nate was saying, by throwing away your moral compass as far as it can go, like things like that. It involves getting rid of everything that you think is right, let alone what you think is wrong. Because, you know, if you think something's wrong, you already forgot about it. But letting go of what this is my right as a man, as a woman, as a son, as a father, as me, this is my right. You have to release all of your rights in order to receive the one true key. So how I was seeing moral compass is, this is something, this is one of the only ways that I know about my grandparents on the Hargrave side. So my mom talks about they left her with a lot of baggage, and that seems to, be a point that people talk about. The baggage of an unlevel playing field, the trauma that we've experienced that allow us to justify the things we've done to protect ourselves up to this point. And so she would always describe it as, my dad did this, so I promised that when I had children, I wouldn't do that. Or my mom did this, so I promised that when I had children, I wouldn't make my children experience that. And again, I want you to look at the picture of a moral compass, because we're the one in the middle, right? So the moral compass is coming from whatever teacher you want it to be. So the father, the mother, that type of thing, where you're in the middle and you understand that both of those things made you, but you are rejecting it. So Uncle Tracy said that a trunk and anything that comes with the trunk, so the branches, the fruit, the leaves, it can't be without the root. It can't say the root, it formed something bad, and I'm going to come over here, I'm going to separate myself from the root and expect to live. So what I'm trying to bring up is that the challenge that I see being presented is giving ourselves, our appearance, the image that we've put in our heads of who we are and who other people are, this grand illusion, giving that away to receive what we need to receive to be who people need us to be. So again, the main point of this, Uncle Tracy said, what is Yah saying to us as a whole? Not just, in specifics, individuals, but as a whole, what is the point that seems to have been brought up this Sabbath? So I'm, again, saying all of this to try to get a little closer and show that it's the moral compass is not a conscience, or some imaginary thing. I want the moral compass to be us, so we can make it realistic, because where our mistrust comes in is we say that somebody is bringing us a key, and it can look like they stand in the doorway and they're supposed to be bringing us something good to unlock us, but they taking up the whole door. So it's like I can't really trust, even though he might be doing what I think he's doing. I can't really trust it, because what if? There's always a what if. And what we're being challenged with is releasing the what if, the mistrust. And what Randall was saying about standing in trust, that I'm not going to let the thoughts of mistrust enter my head to the point that I succumb to them and I stop. Since this happened in the past, I'm not going to trust. I can't trust this guy. And we start going back to trust being something that we can give when we want to. And I can take it back when I want to. And so if we understand ourselves as the moral compass, then we start looking at it from the point that what we want is our need. So we don't look at it from a deficient place of, I want something, but I don't need it. So let me try to clear it up a little bit better. So if we are saying we have lived off of our moral compass all of our lives, how do you get rid of that? You can't get rid of it by, just thinking, oh, I'm going to stop. Because Nate brought that up, that what happens when I understand something and I still choose to do wrong? And so what I'm saying is, once you understanding being the trunk, the laws don't allow you to do what's wrong, if that makes sense. That's where the law comes in, because the commandment is the trunk. The commandment is what led you to understanding. And the laws won't let you break understanding by doing something wrong. So it takes away the mistrust of you doing something right. Because again, this is a way we justify to never enter into a relationship or commit to a relationship. We justify why we shouldn't, why we haven't, why we can't. And so the challenge being to give all of that up and understand that The easiest thing to do is to receive who you actually are. That's the easiest thing to do. But it's hard as long as we have ourselves fighting for what we want, not what we need. We have ourselves fighting with our conscience, other people, and the fact that vulnerability is the only thing that separates or covers. And that's how you know that I understand and I cannot do any wrong with the information I've gathered, because I'm being vulnerable. That is the authority. That is how I know I can take this step. If I fall 1,000 steps, okay, I'm not even going to bring that up because you won't fall, but I can take this step knowing that whatever comes with it is good. It is to edify me. It is not, oh shit, did I do it right? I hope, yeah.
Look, I have a question. Jalen, you did a good job, but it's up there in the clouds. Perhaps the challenge in this question will really help bring what you said home. Let's just say that I invite the guy over, and indeed, he does something, and we see that he's done something. Now, Sherry has expressed her apprehension. I've overridden that apprehension for whatever reason. And the man is here, and he ends up exploiting the trust. How is Sherry supposed to handle that? How am I supposed to handle that?
Okay, let me say something. I do this because I have been on that end of the stick. In essence, not that you did anything wrong, Randall, at all. But I've been on the end of the stick of where Jalen is, where I spoke and really, it was hard for people to understand me. And so it reminds me of also Kayla, when she talks about social anxiety. And sometimes it really comes from trying to express yourself and not being understood or being understood a certain way. So it's somewhat of a sensitivity of mine that I feel for them when they run into this particular place. Jalen speaks a very unique language, and it is very complicated to understand, but it is a language, and it is a very powerful language. Jalen generally, I was going to share this, and what made me start writing about the Hebrew letters on Facebook was I started at the letter Pei, which is the 17th letter. And when I got to the bottom of that letter, I said, I got to go all over, go start all over and go through all the letters again, because it was amazing. Let me tell you something about Pei real quick. Pei, kind of where we get our letter P, but it doesn't look quite like a P. Its ancient picture is a picture of a mouth, a man's mouth, or a person's mouth, or Jalen's mouth. And so if you were to see the drawing of, let's see, a backwards G. Let's say a backwards G, you write it backwards. Let's use that as an idea. And you see the outline, the drawing of that letter. This is powerful right here. This letter is one of the most fascinating letters. It's one of them to me. Because if you would see the outline and drawing of that letter, we understand that as being G, a backwards G. But what Pei does is everything not the actual letter, but all of the things around the letter is the strongest voice. So everything that is not the actual drawing of the letter, but the parts that are not drawn on, is its strongest voice. You see, Jalen's nickname is Pay. He takes everything that has been drawn and he explains the outside of what has been drawn. That is his language, and that's what he understands. But the most and the strongest language is the silent part. The white parts is the strongest language. That's just to give you a close picture of this letter. It took me a while to get to know that about Jalen. It took me a while to understand his language because I was so used to explaining the parts that we see and not the parts that are written upon. I am passionate about this because I have been on that end of the stick too, not being understood.
So what I heard Uncle Tracy say, and I would like to expound upon it just in case it was not understood. So Jalen's language is lawful. Language is lawful. What makes it lawful is how you respond to it. And that response is how Uncle Tracy says, what did you hear me say? So the only response to something that is lawful or something that is a command is something that is an offensive stance. It is never defensive. If it is defensive, you did not hear the love that it was trying to communicate. This is how we understand each other. This is how we wrestle.
Yes. So he presented a challenge, but he presented the outside of the letter as the greatest challenge. And that may have not explained it, the challenge to where it's understood, but that's Jalen. I have worked with Jalen to make his language as clear as possible. I have challenged him, I have pushed him and pushed him and pushed him, and he is far from where he was. But it's still challenging.
One, I will say, to be honest, for those of you who know me, I can be very slow, but I was processing through what's been said. Has been a really interesting conversation. To be upfront, I will say that part of my response won't necessarily speak directly to what Jalen had, because I feel like I need to release something. But one of the things that I did that really caught me, that I think can help tie things in, was what Jalen said specifically at the end. So one of the points that my mom brought out when she was talking about moral compass, I think she used this word specifically, was idolatry or idol. And that was in my mind. When Jalen, part of how I heard Jalen, tying that in and how I heard Jalen talk about moral compass, and Uncle Tracy emphasized, I think Micaiah as well, the points of offense and defense, is this, that a moral compass is built off of defenses, how we protect ourselves, or what we keep versus what we give, if that makes sense. What we hold on to versus what we give. So the opposite of vulnerability. When people have been sharing on this call, I think they're all in Proverbs, but 3 verses came to mind. One of them is unclear, but the first one is it every way of a man is right in his own eyes,
but the Lord or God pondereth the hearts. On one hand, part of what was being expressed made me start thinking about the dynamic nature of that word ponder and what that looks like. Maybe Uncle Tracy, if you follow, maybe you could expound on that. But that was the first verse. The second, the one that is unclear in how it's, in my mind, how it was written, says something like the heart of a man deviseth his steps, but the Lord, his way, or the Lord sets his steps, something like that. So sorry to misquote it, but that came to mind. The last one is trust in the Lord with all thine heart and lean not unto thine own understanding, and he shall direct thy paths. Part of what I heard Jalen say as well, and what I think has been stated across what people have expressed, is the point of vulnerability. I am not in a romantic relationship right now. I know Uncle Tracy was the, whether it was with that relationship or with just, the relationships with my family, setting the stage or setting the tone for that in vulnerability. And what I've learned from him, even when he shared some of the challenges that he and Auntie B have faced, is the direction is found in what they give, in when you talk about being vulnerable, rather than what they hold on to. So some of these things have never been addressed head on. Some of these challenges, because one of the things that I also got is how our moral compass really does not prepare us to address or to face head on the challenges and opportunities of life. They are, in one sense, they're diversions from that. And anyway, it was really interesting. I think that that's one of the things that I have learned as well. Again, specifically in working with Uncle Tracy, but also seeing the application of these concepts, because the last point that comes to mind is there was something that when you were talking about intimacy in relationship that you mentioned, which was love is freedom's law. And that was the last point that had come to mind through what had been shared. So I hate to kind of leave things scattered like that, but those are some of the points that jump to mind as people have been sharing.
Thank you, CJ. Very good. So Randall, did what CJ said kind of help you with the challenge that Jalen was saying?
Yes, I was making the connection, and I basically asked the question because I wasn't sure exactly where Sherry was.
Okay, very good. All right. So Sherry, what Randall is saying is everything that has basically been said. What are you hearing?
Okay, I'm gonna try to make it short. When Randall overrode my concern, I know Randall has my heart at the best interest. So throwing away my moral compass looks like trusting Randall's decision. And then whatever the outcome is, that is God orchestrating it to help me to see where I am as far as what I need to see. In other words, if he exploits the trust after I trusted Randall, I'm gonna be okay with that because I'm aware that he may exploit my trust.
But there's a part that says that if you, Sherry, don't recognize, I lost it, so I'm gonna say it this way, and somebody else can fill it in, help fill it in. You don't recognize your trauma, and you don't really recognize your area of mistrust, then you are not going to fix it. You if you just go straight to, okay, right now, I'm to trust Randall, and you don't know, you have not really dealt with that area of mistrust or whatever. You have not. Again, I don't know how. I can't put the words together. Then what's going to happen is it's not going to work. You're going to end up frustrated later on. You're going to end up saying, no, I don't, I'm mad because you missed some of the steps.
I'm looking at more than one incident why I would mistrust Randall. One of them was I trusted, this is going to be silly, but I'm going to bring it up anyway. I took my cat to the vet, my kitten, and I got back the wrong kitten. And Randall said, I trusted that he said, no, they just shaved the face or whatever. And a week went by and I said, that is not my kitten. And it was too late at that point to get my cat back because the facility basically said we didn't switch your cat out. That was one incident. A next incident was Randall, the sprinkler spraying my seat. Can you fix it? A week went by. Randall, my seat's wet. Can you fix it? Another week went by. Randall, my seat's wet. Can you fix it? Then there was another incident. Randall, I want the tires in my bike filled, and my car tire needs to be filled. I've asked him 3 times, still hasn't got done. What do I do? Fix it myself?
Okay.
I didn't get mad at him. I just simply kept presenting it over and over and over and over.
Sherry, I think we got the picture. Let us address it. The first thing that comes to my mind, and I'm not saying it's the answer, but one of the first things, if I can remember, that comes to my mind is that when you put your trust in someone, does it make it, I'm trying to think of the word, but the point that I'm trying, let me just speak it, and then somebody may help me put it together. Just because you trust someone doesn't mean that they will not make mistakes or fail. Just because you trust someone doesn't mean that they may not be wrong. It doesn't, what you said would make me say that. That you put the emphasis on trust on the wrong place.
Yeah.
Because I can still be wrong. And if what the decision that I made is wrong, I understand that if someone acknowledges, oh, I made a mistake, that was wrong, I know that that needs to happen. But what you said to my mind makes my head go here. Wow. So if Randall is never wrong, you can trust him. But if he's wrong, you can never trust him. That's how it sounds.
Yeah. So what's the true trust? What is the definition of trust then? Is there one?
Can I add something really quickly?
Let everybody know that.
I just wanted to add something really quickly. This is the verse that Chauncey just read a little bit earlier. I looked it up. So it says, every way of a man is right in his own eyes, but the Lord pondereth the hearts, right? So I haven't studied this verse at all, but I looked it up immediately when he said it because it's really sticking out to me a little bit, right? So every way that a man is right, every way of a man is right in his own eyes, right? So forgive me if I'm, like I said, I haven't studied this at all, but this is fire. Like, this is fire. So like the every way that a man is, every way a man is right in his own eyes, that sounds like, to me, what that sounds like is a moral compass, right? But the Lord ponders the heart. That's speaking to the root of something, right? So that's like, regardless of the process, when it comes to trust, I think what I'm hearing you guys say is like, a lot of times you can determine if you trusted someone right or wrong based on if they were right or if they were wrong. But the process of learning something that I've been learning in terms of like Torah and what God's true standard is the right and the wrong all together is a part of it. You know what I mean? So if you trust someone and they let you down, that's still a part of the learning portion of what trust is. That's just as important. That's just as important. If you only trusted someone and they were right every single time, there's no challenge in that at all. That's not really trust. You know, that's just someone being perfect and you're kind of like trusting their judgment all the way through. I think that's an amazing thing. And it's going to what Randall, I guess, is kind of saying, or I guess maybe his challenge is, even if I'm wrong in this, you have to understand that that's a part of the process as well. You know, falling short is a part of the process, and it can teach you something just as much as someone getting something wrong. Like that's like really living life, going through something and allowing life to show you, or allowing your experiences to teach you, rather than like opening up a book and always having the answer there, you know? And if you're used to learning that way, that's a very Western way of thinking. Just give me the answer and I'll try my hardest to get it done, right? But once you abandon that and you realize like, no, struggle is a part of learning, falling short is a part of learning, then you have a different perspective altogether.
Nate brought up some very interesting points to me, and I can't hold my mind on all of them. But the first one I was going to state it, but I can't remember it. The second one that stuck to my mind is something that I've shared recently. But the heart of what I felt Nate was pointing at is that what we are supposed to do when we are couples is that we are supposed to determine what is right. That when a couple gets married, their job is to establish what the truth is. That you cannot expect a man to know the truth outside of marriage. And you cannot expect a woman to know the truth outside of marriage. That is a Hebrew concept. Because if you understand truth, Emmett, Aleph, Mem, Tav. The first letter, Aleph, is silent. That means that truth in its first state is not understood and not even formulated yet. When we get married, that's where truth starts. When we get in a relationship, no matter what age you are, that truth has not been formulated yet. And it takes a sacrifice of a man. It takes a seed falling to the ground and dying, and that is the man. and it becomes the root. And over a period of time, a branch comes out of the ground and it starts in the thicket. It's truth. That's still truth, but it is still not clear of what it is. It's truth. It's truth in development, but it is not really established what the truth really is yet. And after a period of time, it begins to get branches. And then it has leaves. And it's still not fully established the truth yet. Because established truth means that something gives birth to something. That it creates something in its own nature. So if an apple tree bears apples and it drops the seed to the ground and it dies and it becomes an apple tree, it's evident that it is truth. That is emet, the meaning of emet. What I heard him say is that we are evolving into truth. And if what we do is have an expectation of a man, in essence, knowing what is right before we have wrestled, it'll cause a major problem. Because our job is to establish what truth is. That's what I heard him say.
I heard it in real simple terms. Its preservation has a context. If we have the answer ahead of time, that looks like a good way to preserve yourself. But the actual preservation comes from managing it as it's happening instead of ahead of time. The act of preservation ahead of time is simply lacking vulnerability.
Yeah, it's fear.
Yes. Go ahead, Jay.
Yeah, it's just been a good talk. But
we're going to start trying to wind it down. So we're going to.
Yeah, so it's kind of like CJ. I don't mean to just throw verses around, but it didn't formulate. But while Nate was talking, what had been coming to my head is how the process works. So it was Proverbs 16, 18, and 19, and it's just going about pride goeth before destruction, and a haughty spirit before a fall. And so what I was taking from it again is the process of being there at that time takes away the fear that we as humans have, because Proverbs is talking about the completion process that allows new and whole children to be birthed from it. So it's specifically talking about the woman and when she becomes clean, that type of thing. But anyway, all I wanted to talk about with this verse was understanding again the fall. You understand it from two places. If you're not active in it, the fall is terrible, because again, you're at the top, you're at the very top now. Like, you've come super far, you were underground, you couldn't be seen, and now you are the apple. And when you fall to start your own family or start that relationship, if you're not intimate with the action of the day, if you're not present and you're thinking about, well, this is going to be what happens when I get into the ground, or you're thinking about what happened past, and anything but being present, you miss the point of the sacrifice. and that's what I was, hearing Uncle Tracy talk about with Sherry, where it's not all on Randall, nor is it all on you. It is about the agreement that both of you will become one. That it is not, again, the commitment doesn't come just when things are good, because Uncle Tracy's talked about, how does God forgive us so quick, but we don't forgive nobody. But we say, no, yeah, God, I know you don't trust me. You shouldn't trust me based off of all the things I've done, but you'll still trust me. You got me. But it's the commitment to going through the storm together. That's what the trunk and the root have. The root is sending the nutrients that the trunk needs to stand. And once those two come into accordance with one another agreement, then that is what allows the next step, or the step of reproduction, to actually occur, that both of them agree to commit. It's not one over the other.
I had a couple thoughts come up, and one of them is that sometimes, a lot of time, we confuse or mix obedience with trust. I've heard this from my wife a lot, that she mixes obedience in the sense that I'm going to do something because he is a man and he has the authority. And that's not actually the picture of trust. It does not, obedience is a result of trust. It is not prior to trust. We've been taught to show that we value something or trust something by the way that we obey, or the way that we follow it, or how we make it, how we have an affectionate relationship with something. That was one of the things I thought about. And that in my relationship, it's been almost beneficial to, when a challenge comes up like that, to not press moving forward until certain things have been wrestled out. If an action is taken before the wrestling has been done, sometimes that can paint the wrong picture to somebody who doesn't understand. And so sometimes when my wife and I have a disagreement, we have to stop whatever we're doing in order to deal with that, instead of moving forward and letting it lose its salt or let it be brushed over. I think that some of what we talked about is how you cannot have empty house. You cannot be filled with love unless you release something. And that goes back to sincerity of thinking that obedience is more valuable than trust, or thinking the obedience is required of us, not trust. And that sometimes we can think that we can hold on to what we have in our house, inside of us, our moral compass, and give an act of obedience, and that stand in the place of trust. It will always yield the negative. It will never cause growth. And that's some of what I was thinking about.
Mm-hmm. Is there any other questions or clarifications on what we just wrestled through?
No, I did want to say this. I haven't, my ears broke, so I've been trying to use this cord, these headphones, and they're not so great. And the subtitles on this chat room isn't so great either. So I've been struggling through the last 2 sessions. So that's the reason why I have been kind of absent. I wanted to say that so there's no misunderstandings.
Yes, okay. Thanks for the explanation. I was wondering why you was quiet. All right, we're gonna close. Sean, if you're there, give me a summary.
Oh, okay. See. Oh wait, you can't see my lips. Okay. Let's see. Yeah, this works, I guess. So what I heard today was mainly about. Can you see my lips,
No,
Tracy? Oh,
I
okay.
don't see that. I don't
What
see
I
you.
ma- Hmm?
I don't see your picture.
Okay.
Okay, I got you. I got you. Go
Okay.
ahead.
Okay. So what I mainly heard from this session is about trust, really about trust between two parties. That went down your moral compass. Your moral compass, and how your moral compass base comes from a place of, forgot what the word was, but the moral compass comes from a place of, say, like weakness, I guess. Yes, your deficiencies, where you're deficient. You you create some kind of guidance for yourself to depict what's right and wrong, to lead you through your life. And this is a way to, as a defense mechanism that you create subconsciously or consciously. And it's all about removing that defense, slowly removing that defense mechanism and being vulnerable, vulnerable. And this vulnerability will actually help you when it comes to trust, because you're gonna allow yourself to be disappointed. You're gonna allow yourself to
Brian, your background noise is.
um but you're gonna have to allow yourself to be disappointed, and to be, well, to be disappointed sometimes. Sometimes when it comes to trust, well, being open and vulnerable, uh you people that you trust, people that you lend your heart out to, won't always hit 100, can't always hit 100% of the mark. Being perfect is one of those things that you can't allow, because that forms it forms a, like a standard, image for you to always, image first of someone, and that can make it difficult for us to actually develop for another person, because you always see them, you always expect them, you always look for them to be this idol, this image. And when the party falls short, it's really difficult, causes a lot of stress, and it can cause someone to withhold and hold back their problems, because they don't want you to, well, they don't want you to feel like you can't fit their needs. You don't want them not to feel safe. So what ends up happening is there is you build a facade, a false truth, um, just so that one party can feel good. Okay, while you don't, and you're trying to fit that weight just to suit their needs. But sometimes, um, there's going to be a time when you don't want that to happen. That's where problems start to rise. And I'm just going to stop there.
Sean, you are amazing to record all of that in your head. That is amazing. That's an amazing gift to be able to record all of that in your head and to recite like you did. That was good. Okay. Anybody else has anything they want to share or for closing before we close?
Well, I don't have a big long memory recovery like that, but a couple of things that like thoughts that stuck out to me, of course, is since the theme was trust, when CJ had brought out the scripture in Proverbs where trust in the Lord with all thine heart and lean not unto thine own understanding. That's something that I is that was a thought that came to my mind, and I also was got out of it that to receiving what we need will edify us. I think that was something that Jalen was saying, and it's still there's a lot that was said, but I didn't get as much. I can't recall
Just
as
Brian,
much of it as
Brian, you don't need to compare yourself to anybody. Your memory, you did a good job. We understand where you are. So I am glad that you got that. Because I know that you're working through those challenges of understanding the language that we are using. I am thankful. I'm so glad that you got what you got. So you be thankful for it. And don't think people are comparing you to anybody. Did a good job. All right. Well, if nobody has anything else, we will see you next week. And remember, today is Auntie B's birthday. That's kind of why she wasn't on. She has been answering phone calls and things like that.
Tell
oh, that's
Auntie B happy
nice.
birthday.
Tell her
Yeah.
happy birthday.
And you notice I said today is Auntie B's birthday. That means she all y'all's aunt. Randall, that's your aunt. Chad, that's your aunt. All of you. All right. We'll see you later.
Bye, guys.